That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, well, I tweeted this out earlier yesterday, but it looks like the playoffs, fantasy football, is not really fantasy football anymore. I mean, at this point, it's who can pay attention to who's on the COVID list, who can pay attention to who's actually going to be playing on Sunday. So we're going to go through every single backfield, talk about the most up-to-date news that we have. Of course, I'll be live streaming on Saturday. I'll be live streaming on Sunday as well. Yes, on Christmas, to give y'all the most up-to-date reports that we have for every single running back. So, of course, make sure you're subscribed, even though I know you are. But also go down there, drop that like, leave a comment. And also, we got some big news. On January 15th, we are having a Fantasy Flock Network meetup. Now, if you have not, for whatever reason, decided to save the date, this is your chance. We are going to have a flock meetup in Tampa, Florida. Please just stay tuned for the address of that meetup to be coming out hopefully next week. I want to get that finalized. I'll be posting that on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, Discord. You should be able to see it everywhere. But the important thing is save the date, January 15th, Tampa, Florida, 3 p.m. Be ready for the Fantasy Flock Network meetup. And I think that should be it. Let's go through and let's talk about these games. I'm going to be looking at a website so we can actually see the implied team totals as we go through and discuss this. Okay, so tonight you're going to get the 49ers and the Tennessee Titans going. Some quick predictions. Jeff Wilson, hopefully you started him. Tennessee Titans, Donta Foreman, not as appealing, even though I know Foreman crushed it. Hook 'em horns. Just think tough matchup, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. That game's already been played. Let's go over and let's look at our next one. It's going to be the Cleveland Browns and the Green Bay Packers, where right now the Packers are 7.5-point favorites. Kareem Hunt has already been ruled out this week. So what that means is, that means you take Nick Chubb, you put him into your starting lineup, you play him in every single league with the expectation that Nick Chubb should be a top 5 running back this week. Now, the spread in this game, like we said, 7.5 points. So you should be expecting the Cleveland Browns to have to come from behind. This is going to be played on Saturday at Lambeau Field. And with the Green Bay Packers, right now, Aaron Jones has been limited in practice. So maybe you want to walk away with the fact that if Aaron Jones is limited, I mean, this should be a backfield that we kind of, I don't want to say look to avoid based on how many other situations are uncertain. You probably want to be able to go through and just put in a running back here. My preference would be Aaron Jones, but I think A.J. Dillon will also have some appeal as a low-end running back too. Now, let's go over to our next game. That's going to be the Indianapolis Colts and the Arizona Cardinals. Well, right now, it's reported that James Conner is a game-time decision. Now, right now, the Arizona Cardinals are favored by 1 point in this game. But if James Conner were to miss, I think you go through and you have a must-start auto-play Chase Edmonds. With Chase Edmonds coming out and seeing pretty much every single touch out of this backfield, I would not expect a ton of work for Benjamin. And also you have Rondale Moore as a game time decision as well. So Rondale Moore, I mean, so far this season, he hasn't had a large workload by any means, but he has been getting some touches around the line of scrimmage. They've been using him a little bit more as, a gadget type player, but I think those touches would indeed end up going to Chase Edmonds anyway. So I think Edmonds is in play here. If James Conner is good to go, you probably play James Conner, but James Conner didn't practice on Thursday. So I'm honestly probably expecting it to be Chase Edmonds this week. And I don't know if you've heard this. I don't know if anybody has been able to tell you, but Jonathan Taylor is a pretty good running back. So you should probably play him. I'm not confident with that one though. Like Jonathan Taylor, I would say is probably he'll probably finish in the top 30 running backs this week. It's a good idea to have him in your starting lineup. I don't know how you would have made it to the fantasy football playoffs if you drafted Jonathan Taylor, but if somehow you did, probably go through and play him. And then our next game, we got the Detroit Lions and the Atlanta Falcons going at it, where this spread is going to be 6 points favoring the Atlanta Falcons. I think you're going to go through and you're going to play Cordell Patterson, even though the workload for Patterson definitely has been trending in the wrong direction over the past month or so. And with DeAndre Swift, this will be a situation that we have to continue to monitor. Let me pull up the most recent report that we've had with DeAndre Swift. Now I'm recording this on Thursday at about 3 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully, by the time that this video comes out, we have some more clarity on DeAndre Swift. But as it currently stands, DeAndre Swift is back at practice Wednesday. And I'm assuming if he was limited to practice on Wednesday, should be limited on Thursday as well. So it looks like DeAndre Swift possibly going to play, and obviously this would be a nice matchup against the Atlanta Falcons, even though I would expect the Detroit Lions offense to take a slight step backwards. And let's get to our next game. That's going to be the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Here with Baltimore, this is a team that I think you can actually see a small bounce back with the running back core. We were not wanting to play any of them last week with no Lamar Jackson here. I was thinking this was going to be an offense that we needed to avoid. I was wrong with that. Now, still, I'm not going to be too interested in anybody from Baltimore. With Joe Mixon and the Cincinnati Bengals, it's surprising to see that right now Cincinnati's favored by 3 points in this game. Now, I'd imagine that the majority of the production for this offense actually gets funneled through the combination of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, given the fact that with Baltimore here, this is a team that has really nobody left at defensive back, and obviously they are an elite run defense at the same time. But with that being said, if Joe Mixon is to play, which last I saw, it looks like Joe Mixon probably is. I'll go through and pull up the most recent report. As I've said, this week sucks in that we're having to go through and we're having to continue to monitor all these players. But Joe Mixon did get a full practice in on Wednesday. So if he's getting in a full practice on Wednesday, he should be good to go. I don't necessarily think it's going to be an ankle injury we need to worry about. And let's go over to our next game. It's going to be the Los Angeles Rams and the Minnesota Vikings. And here, it's interesting. Cam Akers just got activated off the IR. Now, I am not expecting Cam Akers to play. If Cam Akers does come back and he plays, oh my God, my life would be complete. You have no idea how many dynasty leagues we have Cam Akers in. Now, I'm not saying to go through and to start Cam Akers. That would be ludicrous. That would be crazy talk. I'd expect this to be committee backfield, and you can't start a player coming off a torn Achilles. But at the time of this recording, Cam Akers got activated like 4 minutes ago. So if Akers does play, which I'm not expecting, you can't play Sony Michel. You can't play Darrell Henderson. Now, this past week, I thought Darrell Henderson was going to be the starting running back for this team. We are wrong. Looks like Sony Michel is going to be the lead committee running back here. Not going to be too excited about playing either running back, but they are favored in this game against the Minnesota Vikings. If you were playing someone, it would be Sony Michel. And then with the Minnesota Vikings, fire up Alexander Mattison as a top 3 running back this week. Probably not top 3. Actually, looking at the rest of the field, top 3. That Jonathan Taylor guy is pretty good. You could probably have him pretty high, but I think that you do want to go through and you want to play Alexander Mattison everywhere. As we've discussed time and time again, Alexander Madison's a running back that's going to be seeing, 30 plus touches almost every single week. Now let's go to our next game. We got the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots, where the New England Patriots surprisingly are favored by 2.5 points in this game. Now with New England, we're going to have to continue to monitor Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. Both running backs are currently questionable for this game. And I know that Ramondre Stevenson fell flat on his face this past week whenever you thought he was going to be the 3-down running back. Now, he didn't practice on Thursday. And with Damian Harris, keep in mind, he actually just missed this past week with the hamstring injury. The most recent report on Damian Harris was he was limited in Wednesday's practice. I'd imagine if he is limited on Wednesday, he should be good to go on Thursday. Damian Harris, I would assume, is going to be the lead running back in this backfield. However, in a tough matchup against the Buffalo Bills, you can't play Damian Harris unless you have no Ramondre Stevenson. If no Ramondre Stevenson is here, then I expect that Damian Harris will be the 3-down running back in this backfield that you would then go through and play in every matchup. Now let's go to our next game, which will be the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets. And right now, this game is listed as a pick'em in some sites. Other sites have, the Jacksonville Jaguars as favorites. I'm seeing a site here that is the New York Jets favored by a point. So it looks like a true pick'em here between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets. I think that you have to play James Robinson. James Robinson, now that you have no Carlos Hyde in this offense, he looks like he is going to be, I would say, a top 5 to 10 running back easily with the amount of guaranteed touches that he's going to have out of this backfield, even if this offense looks very bad. And in the case of the New York Jets, I don't know if you can play Michael Carter. Now, if you expect that Michael Carter will continue to expand his role being 1 week healthier in this offense, then sure, he'd be the running back that you're considering. But remember, you had Tevin Coleman with a decent workload this past week. So honestly, this may be a situation you just have to go ahead and avoid. Now, our next game, I think you're going to be excited to go through and play Miles Sanders. And we're going to talk about Miles Sanders and the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the New York Giants. The spread on this game currently is 10 points. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles are supposed to put a beat down on the New York Giants, who I believe at this point most likely have Jake Fromm as their starting quarterback. Now, that being said, with Miles Sanders, he crushed it this past week. He wasn't at practice on Wednesday, but please keep in mind that this was a running back that doesn't need to go back to practice. He played on Tuesday. Like, give the man a day break. So he had 18 carries, 131 rushing yards. He had 2 receptions out of the backfield as well. I know that a lot of people want to say he looked bad. I don't care. That Washington run defense is actually pretty good. It's a lot better than the New York Giants run defense. And with how large the spread is on this game, I'd imagine that this team looks to run the ball consistently. I know that Jordan Howard got a decent amount of carries this past week, but keep in mind, I mean, here with Jordan Howard, a lot of those carries came on the last drive when that game was already out of hand. So if you're just looking at the box score, it's a little deceiving. And then our next game that we're going to have here will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers, where right now Tampa's favored by 10 points, and you're going through and you're playing Ronald Jones. Now, I did not rank Ronald Jones as a top 10 running back, as I know a lot of people wanted us to. I mean, people were upset with how we had Ronald Jones instead as a mid-running back too. Keep in mind, Ronald Jones is not Leonard Fournette. Ronald Jones won't come out and get targeted at a heavy rate as a running back out of the backfield. Instead, Ronald Jones is just primarily going to be a first and second down running back in this matchup. But based on Vegas telling us that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers still project to be a top 3 offense this week, even without Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, I think that you have to go through and you have to play Ronald Jones just for the touchdown upside alone on first and second down. And in the case of the Carolina Panthers, based on, I mean, this being the worst matchup you could ever ask for with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can't play either Chuba Hubbard or Amir Abdullah. Maybe, just maybe, we could talk ourselves into one of these running backs if they were guaranteed to get every single touch out of the backfield. But right now, when they're operating as a committee in a horrible matchup in an offense that's not really supposed to score any points, you can't play either option. Now, our next game, you got the Los Angeles Chargers going to Houston to play the Houston Texans. I mean, right now, Houston is going to be a 10-point dog in this game. You're not going to play anybody for Houston with their running backs. Bad offense, committee backfield. Nobody there is extremely electric. You're going to go through and avoid that situation. And in the case of the Los Angeles Chargers, looks like we may have no Austin Eckler. And if there's no Austin Eckler, there's going to be decisions to be made. Now, this past week that we had with Austin Eckler limited, I mean, let's go through and let's pull up what we had with this backfield in touches between Joshua Kelly as well as Justin Jackson. I believe that Justin Jackson came away with, I mean, the majority of touches. I think Justin Jackson may have even had more touches than what you had with Austin Eckler himself. Now, let me go through and try to find out which week this was. So yeah, Justin Jackson, if we're looking at him in week 15, this is a running back that had 13 carries. And keep in mind, Justin Jackson, he is a good pass catching running back out of the backfield as well. So 13 carries and the reception out of the backfield. And if we're going to be looking at Joshua Kelly, I mean, with Joshua Kelly, instead of getting the 13 carries, he had 7 carries and he did have a fumble at the same time. So I'm actually probably going to be expecting this would be the backfield for Justin Jackson. He profiles also to be a little bit more as a pass catching running back, where Joshua Kelly is more that first and second down grinder. So I would go with Justin Jackson over Joshua Kelly if you have no Austin Eckler. If Eckler plays, I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I know you probably go through and you probably put Austin Eckler into your starting lineup. And then our next game will be the Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks. Y'all know I was rooting for our guy, Rashad Penny. You know how bad I wanted Rashad Penny to go out there and dominate, but we had him, I mean, as a low-end running back 2, a high-end running back 3 last week, based on the idea that he was playing in a bad offense, not in a great matchup, and he was also probably going to be a committee in that backfield. Well, yep, DJ Dallas had half the touches there. So if you're looking at this as an offense that really isn't going to be that productive, I think it would be hard to go through and play either Rashad Penny or DJ Dallas. Now, in the case of the Chicago Bears, however, with David Montgomery, yeah, I mean, they are currently 6.5-point dogs in this game, but still you can go through and you can play David Montgomery, given the fact that if you're looking at this offense, they're not giving a ton of work to Khalil Herbert. I know Herbert had some touches near the end of the game that was just pure garbage time when it's close, which this game should be closer than the last game Chicago played. I think you're going to see David Montgomery just consistently getting to 18, 19, 20 touches. In our next game, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs, where I don't know what to expect. I don't know if we're getting Kelsey. I don't know if we're getting Tyreek Hill. I'll say I have some high stakes leagues with a lot of money on the line where we need, and I repeat, we need Travis Kelce in there. Please, Kelce, come through for us. But I think there's probably only one running back we start here. I think you go through and you start Najee Harris. I mean, had a horrible call this past week telling people to go through and play Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the running back 33 on the week with 8 fantasy points. And the reason we were saying to go through and play CEH was we were looking at that game between him and the Los Angeles Chargers, saying there were going to be a ton of points scored in that game. The Los Angeles Chargers had a horrible run defense, a good pass defense. Let's go through and let's take the starting running back for an offense that's going to be, putting up a ton of points. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has only 8 points, but what's more important is, what you add with Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams coming out, continuing to see touches out of this backfield. Darrell Williams does get 5 carries out of this backfield compared to Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 9. I think CEH would be in play. I just don't know what to expect from this offense. Like, if you remove Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, I think maybe you can go through and make the argument, they're going to have to use Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're going to throw the... Yeah, but they're not going to be able to move the ball down the field. They're going to have less trips to the red zone. So I don't know. You play Najee Harris, even though Harris just had a horrible week against a great Tennessee Titans run defense, and this Pittsburgh Steelers offense looks like one of the worst in the league. But I still think you probably need to be hesitant in playing Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't know. Now, our next game will be the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders, where right now this game looks like either a pick'em game or the Denver Broncos are going to be favored by 1 point based on the lines that you're looking at. And here for the Las Vegas Raiders, right now you have Josh Jacobs dealing with an illness. Now, apparently he's not going on the COVID list, so of course that's great news. And if Josh Jacobs is to play, I think you have to go through, and I think you have to play Josh Jacobs in every league. Since you've had the injury to Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs has just been a running back getting a really consistent workload. He has, since the bye week, 4, 5, 7, 4, 9, 6, 4 targets. The lowest week he has in targets is 4 targets. And the same thing with carries. With carries, I know a couple of those are thrown off because you had the Kenyon Drake games, but over the past month, you've had 22, 13, 9, and 15. So he just has a good enough workload. It is a very bad matchup against the Denver Broncos, but I would play Josh Jacobs. And in the case of the Denver Broncos, I don't necessarily think that you want to play either Javonte Williams or Melvin Gordon, knowing they're continuing to split this backfield 50-50. I'm sorry for everybody I told to trade for Javonte Williams back in week 6, back in week 7, back in week 8, whenever we thought that we were going to get the Javonte Williams full-on breakout in the fantasy football playoffs. Apparently it didn't happen. Apparently, for whatever reason, this coaching staff still thinks that it's a good idea to give Melvin Gordon 50% of the touches here instead of 25%. Javonte would be the running back I prefer, but it's close. They're 50-50. Now, our next game, we got the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington football team, where Dallas is favored by 10.5 points here. Just like we've been saying for a very long time, Ezekiel Elliott looks horrendous. Tony Pollard looks like a way better running back, but you play Ezekiel Elliott anyway because Ezekiel Elliott's the guy getting the targets out of the backfield and also the touches in the red zone. And in the case of the Washington football team, Antonio Gibson's a running back that we're going to have to monitor because right now he's dealing with the toe injury. Now, keep in mind, he did play on Tuesday, and this is a Sunday night game, so I don't necessarily think they need to rush him out there to practice on either Wednesday or Thursday, but he's dealing with that toe injury. And also, J.D. McKissic looks like he may not be coming back from that concussion. So if J.D. McKissic's not coming back and Antonio Gibson misses, Jarrett Patterson maybe is a running back that's going to turn into a must-start option because he would vault up into being a 3-down running back here. As gross as that is to say, I think you probably would have to go through and play him. Now let's go to our last game, the Monday night game. We got the Miami Dolphins and the New Orleans Saints. Duke Johnson was the running back 1 overall last week. Now, that being said, no, you cannot go through and play Duke Johnson. With Duke Johnson, that was a fluke game against the New York Jets. The Saints defense is significantly better. The Saints are actually favored in this game. I believe the line opened up at 3 points and since then has moved down to 1.5, which is intriguing. But nonetheless, I don't think you can play anybody from Miami. Myles Gaskin would be my bet. Now, the issue is with Myles Gaskin, you're looking at him as a running back that's split in the backfield with Duke Johnson. Now, I don't think we can go in that direction. And in the case of the New Orleans Saints, you play Alvin Kamara. With Kamara, like we said, you have to lower your expectations. We take some at quarterback, less targets out of the backfield, more touches vultured inside the red zone, but it is what it is. You still play Kamara. And of course, thank you all so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. Wishing you all the best of luck with your games this week. I think that should be it. Really hope that you have a great day and really hope that we get to see you out in the live stream tonight.